Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of his ship, the Liberty. He looked out at the stars through the big window. The stars looked the same as always, but something felt wrong today. Jake had been flying ships for 20 years. He could feel when trouble was coming. "Captain," said Lisa Ward, his science officer. She walked up to him with a worried look on her face. "We're getting strange signals from the outer edge of the galaxy. They sound like calls for help." Jake turned to look at her. Lisa was smart, one of the best scientists Earth had ever sent to space. If she was worried, then he should be worried too. "What kind of signals?" Jake asked. "They're from the Zethkari. You know those crystal people who live near the edge of space. They're saying something is attacking them. Something big." Jake had met the Zethkari before. They were tall beings made of living crystal. They could live for thousands of years, and had technology that humans could barely understand. If something was scaring them, it had to be very dangerous. The door to the bridge opened. Carl Stone, the admiral of Earth's small space fleet, walked in. His face was serious. "Jake, we need to talk," Carl said. "The Galactic Council is having an emergency meeting. Every species in the galaxy is scared." The Galactic Council was like a big government for all the different alien species in the galaxy. Humans had only been part of it for 50 years, most. Aliens still thought humans were too young and stupid to matter much. "What's happening out there?" Jake asked. Carl sat down in a chair. He looked tired. "Something called they're machines, old machines, that have been sleeping for millions of years. Now they're awake, and they're eating entire star systems." Lisa's eyes went wide. "Eating star systems? How is that possible?" "They turn everything into energy," Carl said. "Planets, stars, ships, people, everything. The Luminar Empire lost 3 solar systems in 1 week. The Luminar are made of pure energy themselves, and even they can't fight these things." Jake felt cold. The Luminar were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They could create shields that could stop exploding stars. If they couldn't fight the Devourers, what could? "The Council wants all species to send their best ships to help," Carl continued. "But honestly, I don't think our little fleet can do much. Our biggest ship has maybe 100 people on it. Some alien ships carry 1,000,000 soldiers." The communication system on the bridge started beeping. A voice came through the speakers. It was Kate Adams, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. "This is Ambassador Adams calling all Earth ships. I'm sending you a recording from the council meeting. You need to hear this." The main screen on the bridge lit up. It showed a huge room filled with aliens of every shape and size Jake could imagine. Some looked like giant insects. Others were floating balls of light. Some were so strange that Jake couldn't even figure out what they were supposed to be. In the center of the room, a tall crystal being was speaking. Jake recognized it as a Zethkari leader. "The Devourers have taken our home world," the crystal being said. Its voice sounded like music, but sad music. "In 3 days, they destroyed what we built over 50,000 years. Our most powerful weapons did nothing to them. Our shields might as well have been made of paper." Another alien spoke up. "This one looked like a tree made of metal. The same thing happened to us. The Devourers came to our system and started eating our sun. We tried to fight them with everything we had. Nothing worked. They absorbed our energy weapons and used them to grow stronger." A floating ball of light spoke next. "We are the Luminar. We have existed since the galaxy was young. We have seen many wars, many enemies, but nothing like this. The Devourers are not just machines. They think, they learn, they adapt, and they are coming for all of us." The recording showed more and more alien leaders telling the same story. The Devourers were unstoppable. They had technology that was millions of years old. They could destroy anything in their path. Jake turned off the recording. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. "So what do we do?" Lisa asked. The council is asking for volunteers, Carl said. Ships to help evacuate people from worlds that are about to be attacked. But they don't want human ships for fighting. They think our weapons are too weak. Jake understood. Human ships used chemical fuel and metal hulls. Human weapons shot pieces of metal or used simple explosives. Compared to alien technology that could bend space and time, human technology looked like caveman tools. There's something else, Carl said. A Zethkari refugee ship is heading toward our sector. They have survivors from the attacks. The council wants us to meet them and help them get to safety. Jake nodded. We can do that. How many survivors? About 200. But Jake, they might have information about the Devourers. Information that could help us understand what we're really facing. Lisa started working at her station. I'm setting a course to intercept the refugee ship. We should reach them in 6 hours. Jake looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, ancient machines were destroying entire civilizations. The most powerful species in the galaxy were running in fear, and somehow, humanity was expected to help. He thought about Earth, his home planet. 3 billion people living their lives, not knowing that death was coming from the edge of space. Human children playing in parks. Human families having dinner together. All of it could be gone soon. Captain, Lisa said. I'm getting another signal. It's from the refugee ship. They're asking for immediate help. Their ship is damaged, and they're losing power. Jake sat down in his captain's chair. All right, people, let's go save some lives. Maybe we can't fight these but we can still help. The Liberty turned toward the stars and flew into the darkness. Behind them, Earth continued to spin peacefully. Ahead of them, the galaxy was screaming for help. Jake didn't know it yet, but humanity was about to become the most important species in the galaxy. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because sometimes the simplest solutions work when everything else fails. The Liberty reached the Zethkari refugee ship just as its power systems failed completely. Captain Jake Miller watched through his window as the crystal ship drifted in space like a dead whale. It was beautiful, even when broken, covered in patterns that looked like frozen lightning. Get us close, Jake told his pilot. Lisa, are you ready to go over there? Dr. Lisa Ward checked her spacesuit one more time. Ready, Captain? I've studied Zethkari biology for years, but I've never actually been inside one of their ships. Be careful, Jake said. We don't know what shape they're in. Lisa and 2 other crew members put on their spacesuits and went through the airlock. Jake watched on his screen as they floated across the empty space between the ships. The Zethkari ship had holes burned through its hull. Whatever had attacked it had weapons that could melt crystal like it was ice. Inside the alien ship, Lisa found something that made her heart break. The Zethkari were everywhere, but most of them were dead. Their crystal bodies had been shattered into tiny pieces. The few who were still alive were barely breathing. Captain, Lisa's voice came through the radio. It's bad, really bad. I count maybe 30 survivors out of what must have been 300. One of the surviving Zethkari, a female named Veltar, was strong enough to talk. She spoke to Lisa in broken human language. You, ... humans, Veltar asked. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Yes, Lisa said gently. We're here too. Help, help, ... double quotes. Veltar laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. No one can help. The Devourers, they are too strong. They came to our world like a cloud of death. Our weapons, our shields, our cities, nothing stopped them. Lisa knelt down next to the injured alien. Tell me what happened. Maybe we can learn something that will help others. Veltar's crystal eyes looked up at Lisa. They knew everything about us. Our technology, our weapons, our defenses. It was like they had studied us for 1,000 years. Every time we fired our energy weapons, they absorbed the power and grew stronger. Our quantum shields that could stop starfire. The Devourers walked right through them. Back on Earth, General Pete Hayes was having the worst day of his military career. He sat in a room full of important people, listening to reports from across the galaxy. Every single report was the same: total defeat. The Corvan defense fleet was destroyed in 4 hours, one officer reported. They had ships the size of cities. The Devourers cut through them like they were made of paper. What about the next Union? General Hayes asked. Gone. Their entire home system was consumed yesterday. 40 billion people. General Hayes rubbed his forehead. He had fought in 3 wars during his career, but nothing had prepared him for this. How do you fight an enemy that can eat planets? Dr. Ben Clark, Earth's best physicist, was studying every piece of information they could get about the Devourers. What he found made no sense. They're using technology that shouldn't be possible, Ben told General Hayes. They can convert matter directly into energy with 100% efficiency. They can manipulate gravity like it's a tool. They can travel faster than light without using any of the methods we know about. So we can't fight them, General Hayes said. With our current technology? No. But there's something strange in the reports. Something I don't understand yet. At that moment, Captain Sam Turner was flying his scout ship toward a battle zone. His job was to watch and report, not to fight. His ship, the Eagle, was small and fast, but it only had basic human technology. Chemical rockets, metal hull, simple computers. Sam was supposed to stay far away from the fighting, but he was curious. He wanted to see these Devourers for himself. He flew closer to the battle than he was supposed to. What he saw made him sick. 3 huge alien battleships were fighting a single Devourer unit. The alien ships were firing energy beams that could destroy moons. The Devourer just absorbed every shot and fired back with weapons that turned the alien ships into dust. But then, something weird happened. The Devourer stopped shooting at the alien ships and looked around like it was confused. Sam realized that his little ship was only a few thousand miles away from the battle. He should have been detected and destroyed instantly, but the Devourer ignored him completely. Sam flew closer, his heart beating fast. The Devourer was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and sensors that could probably detect a grain of sand from a light year away. But it acted like Sam's ship wasn't even there. "This is Scout Ship Eagle," Sam said into his radio. "Command, are you getting this? The Devourer can't see me." Back on the Liberty, Lisa was still talking to the surviving Zethkari. Veltar had told her everything about the attack on their homeworld. "The strangest thing," Veltar said, "was how they found us so quickly. We had hidden defense platforms scattered around our system. They were designed to be invisible to any scanner we knew about. But the Devourers found every single one in minutes." Lisa thought about this. What kind of technology did your defense platforms use? The most advanced we had. Quantum processors, dark matter generators, subspace transmitters. The finest technology in the galaxy. Lisa felt something click in her mind. What about older technology? Simple technology. Veltar looked confused. Older technology. Why would we use that? It is less efficient, less powerful. Did you have any old equipment? Anything that didn't use your advanced technology? There was, one station. A museum piece from our early space age. It used simple radio waves and chemical sensors. Very primitive. We kept it running for historical reasons. What happened to it? Nothing. The Devourers never found it. We thought it was just lucky. Lisa's eyes went wide. She grabbed her radio. "Captain, I think I know why Sam's ship wasn't detected. The Devourers are looking for advanced technology. They can't see simple technology." On Earth, Dr. Ben Clark was studying Sam's report when Lisa's message came through. Everything suddenly made sense. Of course, Ben said out loud. The Devourers are millions of years old. Their sensors are designed to detect the kind of advanced technology that old civilizations would have. They're not looking for primitive chemical rockets and metal hulls. General Hayes leaned forward in his chair. Are you saying our primitive technology is actually an advantage? Maybe. If the Devourers can't detect our ships, we might be able to get close to them. But what could we do? Our weapons are so weak compared to theirs. At that moment, Captain Sam Turner was proving that human weapons weren't as weak as everyone thought. He had loaded his ship with nuclear missiles, the most powerful weapons Earth could make. They were still primitive compared to alien weapons, but they had one advantage. The Devourers had never seen them before. Sam fired his missiles at the Devourer, and then flew away as fast as he could. The nuclear explosions lit up space like tiny suns. When the light faded, Sam looked back. The Devourer was hurt. Actually hurt. Part of its hull was melted and sparking. Command, this is Eagle. The nukes worked. I heard it. For the first time. In months, the galaxy had hope. The humans, with their simple ships and primitive weapons, had done something that the most advanced civilizations couldn't do. They had hurt a Devourer. General Hayes smiled for the first time in weeks. Get me, Admiral Stone. We need to talk to the Galactic Council. I think the humans just became very important. Across the galaxy, alien refugees huddled in fear as the Devourers destroyed everything they had ever known. But now, there was a new hope. The youngest, weakest species in the galaxy had found a way to fight back. The galaxy had begged for salvation. Now they knew who might be able to provide it. Word spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The humans had hurt a Devourer. For the first time since the ancient machines woke up, someone had actually damaged one of them. Refugee ships from dozens of destroyed worlds turned their course toward human space. Colonel Tim Brooks stood in the command center on Mars, looking at a map of the galaxy that showed nothing but bad news. Red dots marked worlds that had been destroyed. Yellow dots marked worlds under attack. There were very few green dots left. Sir, said Specialist Lucy Bell, his communications officer. We're getting hundreds of messages from alien refugees. They all want to know the same thing. How did we hurt the Devourer? Tim had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought wars on Earth and wars in space. But this was different. This time, the fate of every living thing in the galaxy might depend on what humans did next. What do our scientists say? Tim asked. Dr. Nancy Price walked up to him. She was an engineer who specialized in making human and alien technology work together. I've been studying the data from Captain Turner's attack. The nuclear weapons worked because they're so simple. The Devourers don't expect them. Explain it to me like I'm stupid, Tim said. Nancy smiled. Imagine you're wearing armor that can stop laser beams and energy weapons. But nobody thought to make it stop rocks. If someone throws a rock at you, it might actually hurt because your armor wasn't designed for rocks. So our primitive weapons are like rocks. Exactly. The Devourers have shields and armor that can stop the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. But they don't work well against simple explosives and kinetic weapons. Tim thought about this. So we can hurt them. But can we actually beat them? Before Nancy could answer, the communication system lit up. Captain Dan Walsh was calling from his ship, the Wolverine. Colonel Brooks, you need to see this. We just rescued a group of Corvin survivors. They have information about a Devourer base. The Corvin were a military species, known for their excellent soldiers and powerful weapons. If any aliens could fight the Devourers, it should have been them. Put them through, Tim said. The main screen showed a group of Corvin soldiers. They looked like humanoid bears covered in metal armor. Their leader, General Thrak, spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. Humans, General Thrax said. "We heard about your attack on the Devourer ship. Is it true? Did you actually damage it?" "Yes," Tim said. "We used nuclear weapons." "Simple, nuclear weapons." General Thrax's eyes lit up. "We want to learn. We want to fight back. Will you teach us?" Tim looked at Nancy. She nodded. "We'll teach you," Tim said. "But you'll have to do things the human way. No advanced technology, no energy weapons. Just simple explosives and metal bullets." "We will do whatever it takes," General Thrax said. Over the next few weeks, something amazing happened. Alien refugees from across the galaxy came to learn from humans. Species that had looked down on humanity as primitive now begged to learn primitive fighting methods. Dr. Nancy Price worked day and night to create new weapons. She took human designs and built them with alien materials. The result was weapons that were simple enough to avoid Devourer detection, but powerful enough to do real damage. "Look at this." Nancy showed Tim a rifle that looked like a human weapon, but was made from Zethkari crystal. It fires simple metal bullets, but the crystal barrel makes them go twice as fast as normal. Captain Dan Walsh commanded a growing fleet of ships that the Devourers couldn't see. He had human ships, but also alien ships that had been stripped of their advanced technology and rebuilt with simple human systems. "It's working," Dan reported to Tim. "We've hit 3 Devourer outposts this month. They still can't detect us when we use chemical thrusters and basic metal hulls." The Devourers were starting to notice that something was wrong. For millions of years, they had been unstoppable. Now, small groups of ships were attacking them and then disappearing. The attacks were causing real damage. Lucy Bell had built a communication network that connected resistance fighters across the galaxy, instead of using advanced quantum communications that the Devourers could detect and jam. She used simple radio waves. "It's like going back to the Stone Age," Lucy explained to a group of alien engineers. "But Stone Age technology is invisible to the Devourers." The aliens were learning fast. Luminar beings, who were made of pure energy, learned to build simple projectile weapons. Zethkari, who had used quantum computers for thousands of years, learned to use basic electronics. Even the machine species called the Nexus learned to build crude chemical rockets. But the real breakthrough came when Major Susan Hill led a ground assault on a Devourer mining operation. The Devourers had landed on a planet and were in the process of eating it. They had machines the size of mountains that were breaking down the planet's crust and turning it into energy. It should have been impossible to stop them. But Susan had an idea. She took a team of human marines and alien volunteers to the planet's surface. They were armed with the simplest weapons possible: chemical explosives, metal bullets, and rocket-propelled grenades. "Remember," Susan told her team as their ships landed on the planet, "the Devourers will ignore us as long as we don't use any advanced technology. No energy weapons, no quantum communicators, no gravity manipulators. We fight like our ancestors did." The team crept up to the Devourer mining machines. The machines were enormous, but they were not defended. The Devourers had never needed to defend against ground attacks, because no one had ever been able to get close to them. Susan's team planted explosive charges all around the base of the largest mining machine. The charges were simple chemical explosives, the kind humans had been using for hundreds of years. "Fire in the hole," Susan shouted. The explosions lit up the night. When the smoke cleared, the mining machine was falling over like a cut tree. It crashed into 2 other machines, destroying them as well. The Devourers finally noticed the attack, but it was too late. Susan's team had already planted charges on the power generators for the entire mining operation. When those exploded, the whole facility went dark. "We did it," Susan said into her radio. "The mining operation is shut down." News of the successful ground attack spread across the galaxy. For the first time, Someone had not just hurt the Devourers, but actually stopped one of their operations. Tim Brooks found himself commanding a resistance movement that spanned the galaxy. Alien species that had once been enemies were now working together, united by their need to learn human fighting methods. "It's crazy," Tim said to Nancy, as they looked at reports coming in from across the galaxy. 6 months ago, we were the least important species in the galaxy. Now everyone wants to be like us. Not like us, Nancy corrected. They want to fight like our ancestors, like humans did before we had advanced technology. The Devourers were adapting to bait. They started sending smaller, faster units to hunt for the resistance fighters. But even their adaptations were based on millions of years of fighting advanced civilizations. They still couldn't effectively counter simple, primitive attacks. Captain Walsh led a major operation to destroy a Devourer command ship. He had a fleet of 50 ships from a dozen different species, all equipped with simple human technology. "Remember," Walsh told his captains, "chemical thrusters only, metal hulls, kinetic weapons. If you use anything more advanced than a radio, the Devourers will see you coming." The attack was a complete success. The Devourer command ship, which had been coordinating attacks across an entire sector, was destroyed by a combination of nuclear missiles and simple projectile weapons. As Tim looked at the tactical display showing Devourer forces retreating from the sector, he realized something important. They weren't just fighting back anymore. They were winning. "Lucy," he called to his communications officer. "Send a message to all resistance cells. Tell them it's time for the next phase. We're not just going to defend ourselves anymore. We're going to take the fight to them." Across the galaxy, beings who had been running in terror for months began to feel something they hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The humans had shown them that the Devourers could be beaten. Now it was time to prove that simple technology and determined fighters could save the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Ron Davis stood in the command center on Luna, staring at the most important discovery in galactic history. Dr. Greg Knight had been studying captured Devourer technology for months, and what he found changed everything. "Show me." "Again," Ron said. Greg pointed to a holographic display that showed the structure of the Devourer network. "Every Devourer unit in the galaxy is connected to this." The display zoomed in on something that looked like a mechanical solar system. "We're calling it the hub. It's bigger than anything we've ever seen." "How big?" Ron asked. "Imagine if you built a city around our sun, and the city was the size of Earth's orbit. That's how big the hub is." Ron whistled softly. "And you're saying this thing controls all the Devourers, every single one? The hub is like their brain. If we destroy it, every Devourer in the galaxy will shut down instantly." Ron looked at the display again. The hub was protected by layers of defenses that had never been broken in millions of years. Thousands of Devourer ships surrounded it. Energy shields that could stop exploding stars protected its surface. "What would it take to destroy it?" Ron asked. Greg was quiet for a moment. "Everything we have. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. And even then, most of us wouldn't make it back." Captain Jill Parker was working on a special project in Earth's orbital shipyards. Her ship, the Defiance, was being rebuilt with the strangest combination of technology anyone had ever seen. "Are you sure this will work?" Jill asked Dr. Knight, as she watched workers install primitive chemical thrusters next to advanced alien navigation systems. "The idea is to make your ship look like space debris," Greg explained. "The outer hull is designed to break apart and scatter metal fragments. To Devour sensors, you'll look like the wreckage of a destroyed alien ship. And on the inside, you'll have a nuclear weapon big enough to crack a moon. If you can get close enough to the hub's core, one ship might be able to do what an entire fleet couldn't." Jill understood. It was a suicide mission. She would fly into the most heavily defended location in the galaxy, pretending to be space junk, and tried to deliver a bomb that would save everyone. She probably wouldn't survive the trip. "I'll do it," Jill said without hesitation. Major Susan. Hill was training for the ground assault that would accompany the space battle. Her job was to lead a team inside the hub itself and destroy its central computer core. "The inside of the hub is like a city," Susan explained to her team. "A city built for machines, not for living beings. There's no air, no gravity in most places, and the Devourers have filled it with security systems that we don't understand." One of her soldiers, a young man named Alex Carter, raised his hand. "What kind of security systems?" "The kind that have kept every attacker out for millions of years," Susan said. "But remember, those systems were designed to stop advanced technology. We're going in with chemical explosives and metal weapons. Maybe we can surprise them." The plan was simple in concept but almost impossible to execute. The combined fleet would attack the hub's outer defenses, drawing the attention of the Devourer ships. While they were distracted, Captain Parker would fly the Defiance through the defenses disguised as debris. At the same time, Major Hill's team would use boarding pods to get inside the hub. Fleet Admiral Davis knew that most of the people under his command would die in the attack. He had seen the casualty estimates. They were horrifying. "Sir," said Commander Amy Ross, his second in command, "the fleet is ready. We have ships from 47 different species. 2,000 vessels total." Ron nodded. It was the largest fleet in galactic history, but it still might not be enough. "What about volunteers for the boarding mission?" Ron asked. "We have more volunteers than we can use," Amy said. "Everyone knows it's a one-way trip, but they're still lining up to go." The attack began at dawn, Earth time. Ships from across the galaxy converged on the hub from every direction. Human vessels flew alongside, crystal ships from the Zethkari, and energy beings from the Luminar Empire. The Devourers responded immediately. Thousands of their ships moved to intercept the attacking fleet. Space lit up with weapons fire as the largest battle in galactic history began. Captain Parker watched the battle from the bridge of the Defiance as her ship drifted toward the hub disguised as wreckage. Her ship was surrounded by actual debris from destroyed vessels, making her almost invisible among the chaos. "We're passing through the first defense layer," her navigator reported. "So far, so good." On the outside, the Defiance looked like a piece of torn metal from a destroyed battleship. But inside, Parker and her small crew were preparing the most powerful nuclear weapon humans had ever built. Meanwhile, Major Hill's boarding pods had successfully attached to the hub's outer hull. Her team was cutting through the metal with simple torches and explosives. "We're in," Hill reported, moving toward the central core. Inside the hub, Hill's team found themselves in a nightmare landscape of machinery. Corridors stretched for miles in every direction. Mechanical spiders the size of cars crawled along the walls. The air was filled with the sound of grinding gears and humming electronics. "Stay together," Hill ordered. "Remember, we only have 6 hours of air in these suits." The team fought their way through the hub's security systems using weapons that the Devourers had never encountered before. Chemical explosives destroyed robot guards. Simple projectile weapons punched through armor that was designed to stop energy beams. But the deeper they went, the harder it became. The hub's defenses were adapting, sending more and more robots to stop them. "We're losing people," reported Sergeant Mike Torres. "The robots are learning how to fight our weapons. Then we move faster," Hill said. "How far to the core?" 2 miles, said Alex Carter, reading a map they had stolen from a destroyed Devourer ship. Outside, the space battle was turning into a massacre. The Devourer ships were more powerful than anything the Allied fleet had ever faced. Ship after ship was being destroyed. Admiral Davis watched the tactical display as his forces were slowly overwhelmed. "We're losing too many ships," he said. At this rate, we won't be able to hold them off long enough for the boarding teams to complete their mission. Sir, said Commander Ross, Captain Martinez is requesting permission to ram his ship into the hub's main defense platform. Ron closed his eyes. Martinez had a crew of 300 people. Permission granted. The battleship Sacramento flew straight into the hub's largest weapon platform and exploded like a small sun. The platform was destroyed, but so was the Sacramento, and everyone on board. Captain Parker's ship was getting closer to the hub's core. She could see it now through her window, a massive sphere covered in spinning rings and pulsing lights. 30 minutes to target, her engineer reported. Is the bomb ready? Parker asked. Ready and armed. All we need to do is get close enough. Inside the hub, Major Hill's team had reached the central core. It was a room the size of a football stadium, filled with computers and processing units that controlled every devourer in the galaxy. Plant the charges, Hill ordered. We have 10 minutes before they send more robots. But as her team started placing explosives, alarms began to sound throughout the hub. Red lights flashed everywhere. They know we're here, said Alex Carter. Suddenly, the room filled with Devourer security units. These weren't the simple robots they had been fighting. These were intelligent machines that had been guarding the core for millions of years. Take cover, Hill shouted. A firefight erupted in the core chamber. Human soldiers with chemical weapons fought ancient robots with energy beams. It was the past fighting the future, and somehow the past was winning. But they were running out of time. More robots were coming, and Hill's team was running low on ammunition. The charges are set, reported Sergeant Torres, but we need more time to arm them properly. Captain Parker's ship reached the hub's core, just as Hill's team was. Being overwhelmed, Parker could see the battle raging inside through the transparent walls of the core chamber. This is it, Parker said to her crew. It's been an honor serving with you. She activated the nuclear weapon and flew the Defiant straight into the hub's core. The explosion lit up space like a new star. The hub, which had existed for millions of years, cracked apart like an egg. Energy waves spread out across the galaxy at faster than light speed, and everywhere the waves reached, Devourer ships simply stopped moving. Their lights went out. Their weapons fell silent. After millions of years, the Devourers were finally dead. The price had been terrible. Most of the attacking fleet was destroyed. Major Hill and her entire team died in the explosion. Captain Parker and her crew sacrificed their lives to save the galaxy, but they had won, against impossible odds, using primitive technology and simple courage. They had defeated an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. Admiral Davis looked at the tactical display, showing dead Devourer ships floating throughout the galaxy. He thought about all the people who had died to make this moment possible. Send a message to all Allied forces, he said quietly. The war is over. We won. 1 year after the destruction of the hub, President Jack Thompson of Earth stood before the largest gathering in galactic history. The new council chamber had been built on a neutral world, and every surviving species in the galaxy had sent representatives. Today, we remember those who gave their lives so that we could be here, Jack said. His voice carried to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Major Susan Hill and her team, Captain Jill Parker and her crew, Admiral Martinez and the crew of the Sacramento, and the 50,000 others who died in the final battle. In the audience, old friends sat together. Captain Jake Miller, now retired, sat next to Dr. Lisa Ward. They had both lived through the war, but they would never forget the friends they had lost. Behind Jack, a new flag hung on the wall. It showed the stars of the galaxy surrounded by a simple circle, representing unity through diversity. It was a reminder that the simplest ideas were often the most powerful. The galaxy is free, Jack continued, but freedom is not the end of our story. It is the beginning. Dr. Rick Taylor, now the head of the Galactic Restoration Project, had spent the last year traveling to worlds that had been damaged by the Some planets could be repaired, others were gone forever. But life was returning to the galaxy. "We've restored power to 400 worlds," Rick reported to the Council. "We've relocated refugee populations to safe planets, and we've begun the process of rebuilding the civilizations that were lost." The work was massive. Entire species had been wiped out by the Devourers. Billions of people had died. Advanced technology that had taken thousands of years to develop was gone forever. But something good had come from the tragedy. The different species of the galaxy were working together in ways they never had before. The war had taught them that they were stronger together than apart. Admiral Beth Collins commanded the new Galactic Defense Fleet. Her ships came from dozens of different worlds, but they all shared one important feature. They carried both advanced technology and simple backup systems. "We learned an important lesson," Beth explained to new recruits. "Advanced technology is powerful, but it can also be a weakness. Every ship in our fleet has primitive backup systems, chemical thrusters, metal hulls, basic weapons. If we ever face another enemy like the Devourers, we'll be ready." The recruits nodded. They had all heard the stories of how simple human technology had saved the galaxy. Now every species made sure to keep some simple technology alongside their advanced systems. Tony Martinez had been chosen as Earth's new ambassador to the Galactic Council. His first job was to help write the Doctrine of Preparedness, a set of rules that would prevent another disaster like the No species should rely completely on advanced technology, the doctrine stated. Every world must maintain simple backup systems. Every military must train with primitive weapons. We must never again be caught unprepared. It wasn't just about military preparedness. The doctrine also required that knowledge be preserved in simple forms, books printed on paper, radio broadcasts, basic manufacturing techniques. If advanced technology ever failed again, civilization would survive. In the outer regions of the galaxy, new colonies were being established, but these weren't colonies of conquest. They were colonies of protection. Humans and other species worked together to build outposts that would watch for threats from beyond the galaxy. Captain Sam Turner, the pilot who had first discovered that Devourers couldn't detect simple technology, was now in charge of training the new deep space scouts. His students learned to fly ships that looked primitive, but were actually quite sophisticated. The best defense is diversity. Sam taught his students, don't just rely on one type of technology. Don't just use one type of weapon. The enemy should never be able to predict what you're going to do next. Back on Earth, something wonderful was happening in schools around the world. Children were learning both quantum physics and how to make gunpowder. They studied advanced computer programming and basic methods. They learned that every technology, no matter how simple, could be important someday. 8-year-old Emma Watson raised her hand in her science class. "Teacher, why do we have to learn about old rockets when we have ships that can go faster than light?" Her teacher, Mrs. Johnson, smiled. "Because sometimes the old ways work when the new ways don't. The people who saved our galaxy didn't do it with the fanciest technology. They did it with simple tools and brave hearts." On Mars, there was now a museum called the Hall of Simple Solutions. It contained examples of all the primitive technology that had defeated the Devourers: chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, metal, bullets, and radio transmitters. Millions of visitors came every year to see the simple tools that had saved the galaxy. But the most important exhibit was a small plaque that read, "The greatest technology is useless without the courage to use it." Captain Jake Miller, now in his 70s, often visited the museum. He would stand in front of the memorial wall, which listed the names of everyone who had died in the war. Sometimes young people would recognize him and ask him to tell them about the war. What was it like? A young Zethkari student asked him one day. Jake thought for a moment. Scary, he said honestly. We didn't know if we could win. We didn't even know if we could survive. But we had to try, because the alternative was watching everything we loved get destroyed. How did you stay brave? We weren't brave all the time, Jake said. We were scared most of the time. But we had each other. Humans, Zethkari, Luminor, Corvin, all of us working together. That's what made us strong. The galaxy was different now. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had once been enemies. Zethkari, crystal technology was combined with human engineering. Luminor energy research was shared with everyone. The mechanical Nexus species had learned to appreciate biological life. Most importantly, no species thought they were superior to the others anymore. The war had taught them that every species had something valuable to contribute. Even the youngest, newest species could have the answer to an impossible problem. President Thompson was finishing his speech to the council. 50 years ago, humans were the least respected species in this galaxy. We were too young, too primitive, too simple. But when the galaxy needed salvation, it was our simplicity that saved us all. He paused and looked around the chamber at the representatives of hundreds of different species. Today, we are all guardians of this galaxy. We stand watch, not just for our own worlds, but for every world. We maintain not just advanced technology, but simple technology too. We remember that diversity is our strength, and unity is our shield. The chamber erupted in applause. Beings of every shape and size stood and cheered. Crystal beings chimed like bells. Energy beings pulsed with light. Even the machine species made sounds that might have been approval. In a small cafe on Earth, Dr. Lisa Ward was having coffee with her granddaughter. The little girl was doing homework that involved both advanced alien mathematics and simple human arithmetic. "Grandma," the girl said, "my teacher says you helped save the galaxy. Is that true?" Lisa smiled. "A lot of people helped save the galaxy, sweetheart. We all did our part." "What part did you do?" "I listened," Lisa said. "I listened to aliens who were in trouble, and I tried to understand what they needed. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is just listen." Outside the cafe window, the stars shone peacefully in the night sky. Somewhere among those stars, human and alien, ships were working together to keep the galaxy safe. New technologies were being developed, but old technologies were being preserved too. The galaxy had begged for salvation, and humans had answered. But the real lesson wasn't that humans were special. The real lesson was that everyone was special. In their own way, every species, every technology, every idea could be the one that made the difference when it mattered most. And so the galaxy learned to value both the newest innovations and the oldest wisdom. They learned that true strength came not from having the most advanced technology, but from having the wisdom to use any technology, advanced or simple, when the situation called for it. The war was over, but the lesson would never be forgotten. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best solutions. And sometimes the most important thing you can be is ready for anything.